Hi everyone, it's Adam with Knowledge Restoration, and today I've got a set of Kindle furniture nightstands. So this line of furniture was, I guess you could say, kind of budget. Definitely kind of budget actually. Um, it's got a very very thin veneer on it that is, in my opinion, pretty low quality, and it's kind of like a cheaper laminate. But nonetheless, I thought that I could do something with it. I am just cleaning everything off here with M1. I, after this, rinsed it with water. And you'll see that white film that is forming on there. And M1 is a pretty strong cleaner. So, use it with caution. Definitely should be wearing gloves. And all of that kind of, haze there had to be sanded off because I tried to see if it was just like a surface defect that was not actually there, just like kind of a haze appearance, but it was actually a film because I could scrape it off with my fingernail. So I sanded down until I had a good coat of poly that was not peeling and that was stable. Okay, so this is after sanding it. Um, I forgot to sand the corners, and I ended up using a little like flexible sanding pad. You'll see that in the next clip. But other than that, just tacked everything off, got it ready, and that was really it. Okay, so this is BIN shellac based primer. It's been kind of my go-to. It works well, sprays good, it's very thin. You know, I really don't like the idea of thinning primer, and if you're going to use a water-based primer, then that's probably going to be the reality, unless you get some kind of thinner water-based primer that's made to be sprayed, like the primers for the water-based lacquers. You're probably going to have to thin it some, and although I have had luck with like primers like sticks and everything, I find they take a little bit longer to cure than BIN. You know, BIN just gives me a good feeling about it. Like after I spray it, I can go back, generally speaking, 45 to an hour later, and whenever I pull at it with my fingernail, in very rare circumstances, I've had issues with it, but generally speaking, it won't come off. And that's just a little bit of added peace of mind to me, especially using different types of primers and stuff like that for doing client projects. I just really like to know that it's stable. You know, Even if the other primers do claim they can do a good job, and I believe that, they just seem like they need a little bit longer to sit, the water-based enamels. So we have here a Avanti 5-stage HVLP, and I've got a Strongway 12-inch extractor fan. It's 2900 CFM. Definitely not 29,000. But yeah, 2900 CFM extractor fan, and got a filter on the other end, blowing out the fumes. And this is how I spray in my garage. I try to keep the airflow as low as it needs to be, but still good enough to where I get good atomization. Electronic devices like the Glowforge, I cover those up. So I originally decided I was going to stain these, and that was a total mistake. The veneer that was used in this furniture is just so cheap. It was definitely never made to be refinished. I'm sanding with a 220 here, and even for that, it's almost going through it in the corners, and not to mention that. But also, I noticed that you'll see in a little while, but it didn't take the stain, and it just didn't look good in my opinion. Okay, so that primer's dried, and now I'm sanding with a probably 320 or 220 pad. The flat areas with the primer, just a quick, you know, go over them to get any orange peel out or any surface defects, to get a smooth surface for painting. As well, I have a different sander that I'll use for the curved edges, which is the surf prep. Okay, so on the left here we have the Minwax gel stain and walnut, and on the right we have Dixie Belle's White Lightning. It's a whitewash. Neither one of them looked very good in my opinion. Okay, so I've got Emerald Urethane and Van Cortland Blue and Satin Sheen, and it's just straight out of the can. So, for the drawers, since I had to repaint them, I didn't want to load up the BIN primer and have to clean out the gun again. So I actually just brushed it on and then sanded it flat. It came out pretty good. BIN primer is a very good brushing and rolling primer in my opinion. So whenever I can not thin it, I don't, and sometimes I just kind of try to experiment and see how it works. Um, it had been a while since I'd used unthinned emerald urethane in here, and I find that whenever I don't thin it, sometimes but not all the time, it seems to cure a little bit faster, and so I kind of do like that. But other than that, though, I think 5 to 10% water isn't going to hurt it, and I will do that on the final coat. But for this coat, it's just I just really want the full strength of the paint to get one pretty thick solid layer on there because it's going to get sanded anyway. Also, emerald urethane has a 4-hour dry time. Kind of a bummer, but it's got its reasons and it's got its purpose, and so that is one good thing about it, is that it has a little bit of time to level out, and if you're spraying it right, it should not dry immediately. Just kind of a little tip: if you're spraying paint and it dries as soon as it hits the surface, that's really not a good sign. And I used to paint like that, and I used to wonder why I kept getting bad results. So, I try to use and display as good of gun posture as I can, but honestly, a lot of the times I don't. You know, if I was spraying a client project or cabinets or stuff like that in the field, I would never do something like turn the gun sideways and stuff like that, because it's just really not good to do that. You risk losing suction and a lot of other problems like that. It's just not a good practice to get into, but here I'm just not too worried about it, because if something happens, I can just fix it, and it's really not going to take me that long. But you know, whenever I spray on site and whenever I'm somewhere like that, I'll try to either use an airless or I'll use a pressure pot if I have the setup for the gun. I have had pressure pots before. I just have never really liked them very much. I find them to basically take away a lot of the benefits of using an HVLP, which is that, the cleanup is so limited. But with a pressure pot, I feel like I just have to do all the same cleanup as an airless. And, I still don't have as much power as an airless. So I just have never really liked them for that reason. So, just a little tip here. After I finish spraying this top, you'll see me emptying this gun. And whenever you turn your gun off, pull the trigger, you should have paint flow coming out of it. And if you're measuring that in inches and not yards, generally speaking, the material you're spraying is too thick, which is definitely the case here. Okay, so I've got some M1 here on the drawers handles, and I ended up switching this. I painted them gold originally, and I just thought that maybe I wanted to do silver because of the color of the blue. I think it worked out better. I'm glad that I changed the color, but it was kind of a pain. With the silver that I got, just did not work out very well. It took a long time to dry. Okay, so all this sat overnight, and I sanded it the next day. Just happened to work out that way. Kind of sprayed it late, so I had to wait. Final coat, I really don't like to use tack cloths. Just you do run the risk of getting a glop of adhesive on it, and that's just something that for the final coat, I don't really feel like it's worth it. I'll just make sure that I clean it off good with a microfiber and then with a blower or a vacuum. So you could see there that I thinned it by about 10%, and it sprayed a little bit better. Still wasn't exactly what I would have wanted to go to, but I just didn't feel like thinning it that much because I just really like to make sure that I get as much of the sheen to stay consistent, and it is better not to thin it when you can avoid it. And for this purpose of the expectations of the stressor, it doesn't need to be glass smooth. It's a satin sheen. If it had been a high gloss sheen, I probably would have thinned it a little bit more. Okay, so if you made it this far, for some of my more regular viewers, I kind of wanted to put it out there and see what y'all's interest was. Thinking about doing like a painting talk kind of video every week, and probably what it would be, basically just a 20-30 minute video. I might do it like in my shop, just me talking and showing stuff, or I'll do a screen share and I'll talk about new painting technologies, new paints, how to buy paint, where, the exact products that I use. Let me know if you're interested. So just finishing up here with the last of the paint, and then I put the hardware in after I'd repainted them silver. They were a little mushy, so I had to use a pair of needle nose pliers to help me to not touch them. So here's the final dressers, and thanks for watching.